Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are picking back up again with Dead Planet, right? With DCeased, Dead Planet Part 4. And in the last video that we did, we basically talked about how you had Constantine showing up to Mr. Miracle, right? To Scott Free, and basically saying, hey, look, we are looking for Metron, right? Like, we need to get into New Genesis, we need to get a hold of Metron, because we need to find out from the Mobius chair where the cure is, right? The problem with this is one does not simply just walk into New Genesis, right? Like, you don't simply just go there and then demand the chair of Metron, right? It just simply doesn't work that way. And so you get this kind of, boom tube explosion right into the safe zone, basically like the safe area that was created by Poison Ivy that everybody kind of resides in at the moment. And you've got Mr. Miracle who shows up here, and initially it was like Damian Wayne thought he was dead, right? It's kind of like, dude, I thought this guy was dead. Like, dude, if this guy's alive, man, this is kind of crazy. Not only that, of course, Scott Free makes a comment about how Batman shrunk, right? Damian Wayne's smaller than Bruce Wayne. But the whole idea here is they kind of give us, we kind of get this little bit of a run over, right? This little bit of an explanation in the sense that Cyborg might have the cure inside of him, but they simply can't access it, and that Metron's Mobius chair contains all the knowledge of the new gods, right? And so if there's an answer to be found, it's in there. But the whole thing here is it's kind of one of these funny little scenarios. Dinah Lance, remember when Jonathan passed out, he didn't know where Black Canary was. They call her Green Canary, basically, but he didn't know where Dinah was. The fact that Dinah tried to bring the body of Oliver Queen into the sanctuary, and Poison Ivy said no, Dinah got pissed, and then she kind of went off on her own. And so you have Jonathan who gets out there with basically Mary Marvel, because we know they're going to be a couple, and Dinah's out there. Of course, she's glad to see that Jonathan's alive, but they kind of have this bit of a conversation here, and they're talking about the idea of Oliver, right? Oliver is basically alive. He's just kind of kept inside this Green Lantern stasis bubble, right? He's there, but he's kind of not there, if that makes any sense. But the idea of Mary Marvel is, okay, surely we could try to find some way to get him inside, right? Like, I mean, we could try to get past Poison Ivy, and we can have Dr. Fate put a kind of protection spell on him, but at the end of the day, it's still a huge risk. This is why sentimentality is usually often the end of things. It's cool to care about those that you care about, that's nice, but we're talking about the end of the world here, and there is no room for somebody who could conceivably kill everybody in this place by all they have to do is basically bite them, right? So it's kind of like that quote from The Dark Knight Rises. In this place, innocence cannot be allowed to flourish. It has to be stamped out, right? That's basically what this is. So yeah, it sucks. It's kind of cruel, but that's just kind of the way it is. From here, you kind of have this romantic moment that's shared between Cassie Sandsmark and Damian Wayne, and I just want to throw it out there. This makes perfect sense, and I actually dig this whole thing more than I dug the one with Raven and Damian during the DC universe, the final movie they made. Was it Darkseid War or Apocalypse War, whatever it was they were calling it? I kind of dig this more than I dig Raven. Here's my question. Do you like Damian Wayne with Cassie Sandsmark, or do you like him with Raven? I'm kind of curious, because I feel like Teen Titans fans will be like Raven, and then like anybody else will be like Cassie Sandsmark. Like, I feel like that's what it's gonna kind of come down to. But of course, they basically end up arriving here on New Genesis, right? The home of the new gods. And when they get there, you kind of have this little bit of a fight that goes on between Orion and Scott Free, right? Because remember, they are basically brothers, right? For those of you guys who don't really know the relationship between these two, the idea is that at some point in the past, it became obvious, at least it was kind of done by Metron, but it became obvious that Apocalypse, which was ruled by Darkseid, and New Genesis, which was ruled by Highfather, that they were going to go to war, and they were going to lead to the destruction of presumably everything in the universe, given the power that they had. And so because it would lead to the end of all creation, Metron ended up proposing a truce, and this truce came in the form of them swapping their sons. And so Orion is the biological son of Darkseid, and he resides on New Genesis, and Scott Free is the biological son of Highfather, and he resides on Apocalypse. And that's basically how they kind of maintain this truce, that neither one wanted to see their son die, was really kind of it. But then basically, with this kind of fight breaking out, you have, Jonathan who sort of jumps in, he ends up taking out Orion, but then of course they're met by the arrival of Highfather. And you would expect Highfather to be hostile towards them, right? To be like, what are you doing in my house, right? Get off my lawn, go all Clint Eastwood on him. Not at all. He's actually just kind of like he's there, and he's like, I mean, it's kind of good to see you again, right? It sucks that you lost Big Barda, but it's good to see you again. Not only that, you kind of get this explanation from Scott Free and saying, hey, look, we need to know if you can call out to Metron, right? I mean, you're a new god, and you're basically Highfather, right? So you're the ruler of New Genesis. Metron will answer you. He's not your errand boy, right? He's not going to show up here and say, what can I do for you, Highfather? Anything to please the king today. That's not what's going to happen. He's like, but he'll show up here if you call him, right? If you summon him, he'll appear, and so he's like, we need you to bring him here. And he's like, well, the problem here is that Metron will not give the chair willingly. And Metron's not someone, he's not ruled over by me, right? He's only ruled over by his quest for knowledge. So even if I do call him, there's no guarantee he'll answer. I guess we can give it a shot, because me calling him will probably achieve a greater percentage of success than you, right? Because why would Metron listen to Scott Free? So at the end of the day, you kind of have this thing where Highfather ends up calling Scott Free off to the side. And what you end up learning here is that Scott Free and Big Barda actually had a son together, which is kind of crazy, right? I don't know if in the main DC continuity, if that's actually happened. I want to say they have not, but I'm probably wrong. I'm not 100% sure there. But regardless, Scott Free's got a kid. And the idea was that at the beginning of all this, really even before this whole outbreak seemed to happen, that Big Barda and Scott Free kind of left him here with Highfather. Now, we're not really given like a full-on explanation as to why, because you kind of have, you know, Scott Free who sort of cuts off Highfather at the last minute. But the whole idea behind this, we're kind of given just this sort of explanation in the sense that Scott Free cannot give his son what he deserves, which is why he's not here. That kind of seems to be an extension of their original logic, which was that they couldn't really protect him in the way that he needed to be protected, or they couldn't give him what he needed. It's this an interesting situation, because the response of Highfather is that with Darkseid gone, it's entirely possible that his son could rule over, you know, the son of Scott Free could rule over one day, right? He could rule the universe one day. And at the end of the day, if Scott Free knows that, does he want his son to basically be raised, you know, in the mindset of himself, right? To be raised by Scott Free himself, or under the influence of like Orion or Highfather or Lightray? Like, how does he want that to work? And so when the question's asked by Highfather, like, what's the point of all this, right? Like, what's the goal of what it is that you're looking to do here and getting Metron here and trying to cure all this? The response to Scott Free is, I'm trying to bring his mother back, right? I'm trying to bring back Big Barda. We can save everybody. And if we can save everybody, then we can grab my son and we can raise him in a productive way. And so the response of Highfather is, okay. But something that you have to keep in mind here is Big Barda may not be able to come back. Whether you succeed with her or not is irrelevant. You have to come back for Jacob, right? You have to come back for your son. You have to grab your son. You have to take him out into the universe. You got to raise him, right? To become the best version, right? Like, he's a piece of your wife. And if your wife can't come back, he's all that's left of your wife. Do you really want to abandon that, right? Or do you want to raise him and help him become a productive member of the universe, right? To become the best version of himself. And so from there, you pick up with, you know, Superman, and you pick up with these guys, you know, Cassie Sandsmark and all them kind of hanging out by an asteroid, and Mr. Miracle basically just standing there waiting for Metron to show up. And then Metron, of course, as soon as he arrives, Mr. Miracle's like, hey man, so like, you know, when Metron's like, hey dude, so like Highfather summoned me, said that you have something, you know, to see, that, you know, that allows me to see the future. And like Scott Free's like, yeah man, it's this right here, you know. And he's like, you know, I can see your future in this, Metron. You know, he's like, I can definitely see your future. And then like they attack him, right? Like which, if I'm being honest with you guys, is a pretty shoddy plan, right? Like if we're being honest with ourselves, that's a pretty shoddy plan. Like that was never going to succeed, right? We're going to just run up on Metron, you know, this super powerful guy who's bound by knowledge, and we're just going to attack him, and then we're just going to like take his chair, right? Like that's not going to happen. And in fact, Metron gets the upper hand on them pretty fast, and that's when Jonathan catches up to him. Now, this is Jonathan kind of filling the role of his dad, right? Because this is something that only Superman really could have done. But he basically shows up to Metron and says, hey, look, I never really wanted to fight, right? Like, we need your help here, right? We need your chair for a simple moment, and then we'll give it back, right? Earth is being consumed by the anti-life equation. And the response of Metron is, I don't care. And that's when Mary Marvel really proves her worth here. That Mary Marvel uses the wisdom of Solomon to say, yeah, but like, you're a curator of knowledge, right? You're a being who cares about knowledge more than anything in anything else in the universe. You're one of the smartest men in the entirety of the universe, right? Like, imagine what the universe would be like if all the knowledge on Earth was lost, right? Like, what happens to all that knowledge? And that's the thing that kind of gets him in. He's like, okay, cool, like, I'm on board. All right, cool. You should have opened with that instead, right? And so he says, like, let me have that ball that Scott Free has, and I will look at everything this has to offer, right? I'll look at everything here and just kind of get a glimpse, and then you guys can sit on a Mobius chair and do your thing, right? So like, we'll trade. And it's like, cool beans, right? So you end up having Cyborg, who gets on the chair, and Cyborg, it's kind of a funny thing, right? We almost kind of get this tease about like the war against existence that's to come. Seemingly what it looks like, what Tom Taylor's kind of throwing at us here, is we're going to see this scenario where like this massive conflict on Earth is going to spread out into the universe, right? It's going to become massive, which makes sense. That's typical Tom Taylor, to take a story that takes place on Earth and expand it out into the greater universe. So presumably all the Lantern Corps and all that kind of stuff, I'm not really sure, but that kind of seems to be what's going to happen there. But then of course he ultimately ends up finding the cure and says that he needs to recode his blood, that the life equation is essentially in there. For Metron takes this orb, looks at it once, and is like, I gotta go, and like bails, right? It's like he literally just books. And they're like, dude, he looked at this thing for like 1 second and then ran away. And they're like, yeah, man, I think it's time to leave. Well, the reason why he ran away is covered when we pick up with the Black Racer, right? Basically the kind of nature, like an aspect of death that exists, right? For new gods and for speedsters and so on. And so you end up basically picking up with like what's left of Apocalypse, right? Like this little core piece of Apocalypse. And literally like the Racer is witnessing all of this go down. He's watching all this happening. That inside this small little tiny facet of Apocalypse that that Darkseid reemerges, right? Darkseid is not dead. And so then like in the midst of all that, you suddenly have like Highfather, and you've got Jacob and all them, you've got like all these folks on New Genesis who are there, and like this looks like a meteor comes crashing down onto New Genesis, right? Like comes crashing down onto this place, and there's basically nowhere they can go, right? Because by that point in time, it's essentially too late. Unliving Darkseid was already there. That's what he's called, Unliving Darkseid, which is an amazing name, right? Like it's a ridiculously good name. But anyway, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. Now we'll catch you all later. Peace.
No.